Well, Ted, let's get to our main event this week. It's Road Wild 1997, and it took place on August 9th. And of course, the setting is the huge Sturgis motorcycle rally in South Dakota. Ted, what did you think about this setting for a pay per view?
It's like, oh my God, really? I don't know. I don't know whose idea it was, but it was a wild one.
Did you go out and enjoy any of the festivities in Sturgis at all?
No,
Probably your safest bet
no.
to avoid hitting the bars and restaurants there. I do want to ask you this though, when it comes to Sturgis, the year prior, bikers were throwing rocks at wrestlers, shouting racial slurs at Harlem Heat, and weren't really reacting to any storyline stuff. Any thought in your mind that it could be an unsafe environment for wrestlers to be around a bunch of aggressive bikers who weren't necessarily wrestling fans?
Yeah. It's like, whose idea was this? And, yeah, I don't know, man. Or, and of course, a bunch of bikers that maybe they would just think, again, wrestling, it's a show. They're going to put on a good show. It's kind of like, it's like the only time it might have gotten serious is if any of them took it serious.
It was a good time for you to be a baby face. Nobody's going to be throwing rocks at you.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, the Steiners would come to the ring riding motorcycles, which endeared them to the biker crowd. So you're on foot, as we can see in this photo, that you're off to the far left there. If you're not watching this on YouTube, go and tune in so you can have a look at this photo. There's Ted with the two Steiner brothers. They're on bikes. He's walking. Ted, safe to assume that you are not a motorcycle guy.
No.
Have you ever rode a motorcycle?
Yeah. Not no great big, I'm not one of
Big
those
hog.
guys. Like I rode small motorcycles, and then the last time I ever rode a motorcycle, I was still in high school.
Oh, wow. Okay, so it had been a bit.
Yeah.
Now, if Bischoff had been adamant that he wanted you to come out on a motorcycle with the Steiners, would you have agreed to it or said that doesn't work for me, brother?
You good? Yeah. I mean,
You do it?
yeah, I'd do it. But,
Uh,
but
Kind of a missed opportunity on that entrance, in my opinion. That would have been cool. Well, the match itself is interesting, and it's surrounded by a little bit of controversy. The outsiders will look to be defeated, but when Nick Patrick goes to make the 3 count, Nash is going to pull him out of the ring, and Patrick calls for the DQ. There's a backstory here, which Meltzer outlines in The Observer. Road Wild was ruined before it ever started. The setting was strike 1. The backstage maneuvering was strike 2, and the results of that maneuvering, the lame, hastily put together finishes up and down the show, were strike 3. Booker, Terry Taylor, had put together a show and subsequent bookings for the next couple months built around 3 title changes on the show. Chris Jericho to regain the Cruiserweight title from Alex Wright, which didn't happen. The Steiners to finally win the tag team titles from Kevin Nash and Scott Hall, which didn't happen. And Hulk Hogan to regain the WCW heavyweight title from Lex Luger, which did happen. The fact that some fans knew this ahead of time, which has caused WCW and other promotions in the past to change long-term plans, had absolutely nothing to do with the fact that 2 of the 3 never took place. And the result, that there are cards booked with matches that make no sense and will likely have to be redone. What exactly happened wasn't clear. The belief is that Hall and Nash went to Bischoff and told him that they thought there had been too many title changes of late, and it was ruining the credibility of the titles. At least that's where everyone was placing the blame. On the surface, they have a valid point. Bischoff agreed, which may have been the correct thing to do. The problem was, if that was the case, it needed to have been done before all the plans were made. And the fact that it was Hall and Nash who came to that conclusion at the same time they were going to drop the titles does not give the viewpoint something of a conflict of interest. So, Ted, that was an awful lot to read, but in a nutshell, it sounds like Hall and Nash were supposed to lose those belts, went to Eric Bischoff and said, hey, there's too many title changes. You're killing the credibility of the belts. We don't want to drop the belts tonight. Is there any chance you remember any of this stuff being changed in this match that you're involved in?
You know what? I didn't. It's hard to describe this to you. Again, I was not, I was not real happy with what they were doing anyway. Okay, I
Mm,
mean, just it's kind of like, and again, I've known I didn't know Eric Bischoff until I went there. I mean, the guy who's calling all the shots doesn't know crap about wrestling.
right.
Bischoff didn't know crap about the wrestling business. And so where's he getting all his, well, he's got to be listening to the guys, to the wrestlers. And that's the whole deal. And but I'm just saying this. I can't contribute a whole lot to this conversation because I was already gone.
Mentally, you were out of there.
Yeah. I mean, I was already gone. It was kind of like, I was grateful for a 3-year contract, which was a sweet deal. That I said I'm gonna show up and I'm gonna do what they tell me to do. And then when my 3 years are up, then I'll be gone.
That makes perfect sense to me, where it's like you're kind of mentally checked out. You're not necessarily paying attention to all this stuff that's happening. And you're just going out there like, okay, what's the finish? Cool. And you go out and do your job. So all of that makes sense to me.
And again, it's like the inmates were running the asylum.
Yeah.
That's what the deal was, and which made me even more detached. And now if I'd have been physically wrestling at this time,
Hmm.
I'd have had I'd have had a whole lot more to say and a lot more input in it. I didn't know any of the background. I didn't know. It's kind of like I didn't know where they were going with all of this. What? Okay, it's kind of like a good booker goes here's the end result. Now let's start there and work backwards. Not start here and go forward. Let's like let's go to the main event on whenever it is, and let's go back. What should happen the week before? What should happen the week before that? And there's a lot of good bookers do that.
And it sounds like Terry Taylor had things pretty well mapped out. And then it's again, you've got people with
Yeah, and hey, listen, Terry Taylor and I are good friends, and Terry Taylor has that. He's got that gift, and I never had that. I was a great worker. You tell me what you want done, I can go in the ring and I can make the magic happen there. But as far as being the guy who's going to figure out all of this crap, I didn't want to be that guy.
I do think it's interesting. Like a lot of people on the surface are hearing about Hall and Nash and this act that they allegedly did here at Road Wild to change the finish. But for context, in years prior, I think a lot of guys would lobby to not lose title belts because having a belt would guarantee you a higher spot on the card and thereby greater payoffs. But that's a non-factor here because Hall and Nash are both on guaranteed contracts.
As was I.
As were you. So in theory, there's no reason to poo-poo the idea of dropping a belt unless you're a mark for the belt, which I don't think Hall and Nash were. So I say all that to ask Ted, you saw what things were like backstage in WCW. I mean, do you feel like political maneuvering would have been done in the best interest of the company or in Hall and Nash's best interest?
Oh. I think it was obviously being done for the best interests of all the Nash. Of course. It's like, it's like, you're in it. When you're not like one of the people calling the shots, then you're in it to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
And that's it. I mean, it's cutthroat business. Everybody knows that.
Go ahead.
So, I was very good at letting people know what I liked, what I didn't like. If they said if they came to me with something, I said I don't like it, and then even Vince said that. He says we can agree to disagree. He says, but if you disagree, then don't just disagree and say I don't like that. Tell me what we can do different. And the only time that I would, and it hardly ever happened with me, that I would, if I didn't like something, then I would think, well, like, how about, can I go back and say, well, what, can we do it this way? Yeah, 9 times out of 10, we could.
This will be my last question.
Yeah, maybe 50-50, but whatever.
This is going to be my last question for the week, and then I'll let you go. This conversation is making me wonder, during your territory days, when you would hold a belt, like I said, you would maybe not want to lose that belt, not because you want to carry around a belt in your luggage, but because it puts you higher on the card to hold a belt, and thereby you get more money. So I say that to ask, like, did you ever have any hesitance to drop a belt to anyone back during the days in the territories, Ted, where it was like, man, I'd really prefer to hold this belt so I can keep my spot on the card?
Well, not really. I mean, it's because I'll be honest with you, I was never really worried about my spot on the card because it's very rare that I went anywhere after that first year and a half with Bill Watts, or 2 years, whatever it was. And I thank God now that I started my career working for this guy, because I learned so much from Bill Watts. He was one of the greatest minds ever. It was like I knew that as long as I knew I was figured in, because you can't always be in the main event. You can't be the main event every week. And so sometimes so like like you have your run, and then you lose, you lose the championship, and then you may not be in the main event, but you're not going to be the card, the curtain, whatever you call it, the curtain jerker.
Right.
You're not going to be the first guy in the match. The first match, and you're going to be somewhere significant.
It's interesting to hear your take on it in the territories. It was such a pirate ship sort of atmosphere back in those days, where it's every man for himself. Wrestling is not a team sport where it's like you're an individual who's just trying to get yourself over. And so, like, where I think a lot of guys would want to say, like, hey, I don't want to drop this belt, you were saying, like, hey, just put me on the card and I'll get myself over. And you did.